I think that she has to turn around and she's got to hit him low too. You know, this, I mean, it ain't like she don't have, it ain't like she's devoid of the ammunition.
Stephen Smith just dropped a bombshell about Vice President Kamala Harris, and it's got everyone talking. Known for being blunt, he didn't hold back this time either. Smith revealed some shocking details that no one saw coming, and it's clear he's not afraid to stir things up. What could he possibly know that's causing such a frenzy? We are going to dive into what Stephen Smith just exposed about Kamala Harris that is shaking up the entire Democratic Party. Stephen A. Smith slams Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris broke new ground as the first woman, the first black woman, and the first South Asian American to become the Vice President of the United States. This was a historic step, and it set the stage for big expectations. People were eager to see her tackle big issues head-on, believing she would be a bold voice for change, ready to handle tough topics with openness and demand accountability in her role. However, over time, there's been a shift in how people view her effectiveness. Critics say she seems to avoid tough questions. They point out that she's missed interviews, steered clear of difficult discussions, and stuck to scripted responses rather than openly addressing the real concerns of American citizens. Before we dive deeper, it's obvious that what's happening behind the scenes is far more alarming than anyone expected. And this is just the beginning of what will truly astound you. Stephen A. Smith, a prominent media personality, has been quite vocal about his disappointment in Harris. He argues that being in such a powerful position requires facing tough questions bravely, no matter how uncomfortable. According to him, Harris has not lived up to these challenges, which he sees as a significant failure, affecting not just her image, but also how the public perceives the role of vice president. Smith's critique isn't just a minor comment, it's significant because of who he is. Known for his direct and no-nonsense commentary, Smith's words tend to draw attention. His criticisms go beyond just noting that Harris avoids interviews. He's deeply concerned about what her behavior suggests about her readiness to handle the responsibilities of her office and her willingness to confront difficult truths as a leader. This raises a big question. Why does it matter so much? In leadership, honesty and transparency are key. When a leader appears to dodge straightforward questions, it can signal that they may not be fully committed to the principles they advocate. This perception can trigger wider discussions about what people expect from their leaders and whether those in power are genuinely prepared to address challenges directly. We're diving deep into why Stephen A. Smith chose to speak up so strongly against Kamala Harris, examining his words and their impact. We'll also explore the implications of Harris's actions for her role as vice president and what this situation says about leadership and accountability in today's political environment. To fully appreciate the weight of Smith's words, it's important to understand his background. He isn't just any commentator, he's a significant figure in media with a commanding presence. Starting as a sports journalist and rising to fame with ESPN, Smith has become well known for his energetic and sometimes controversial views. Whether he's debating on First Take or expressing his opinions online, Smith's views make headlines. His unique style, loud, passionate, and straightforward, resonates with a wide audience, making him a respected voice not just in sports but in broader societal discussions. What makes Stephen A. Smith stand out is his ability to connect with people by being genuine and straightforward. He doesn't hide behind complex language or shy away from saying what he thinks, even if it stirs up controversy. This approach has earned him a large following who trust his judgment and value his fearless approach to discussing tough topics. But it's not all about style. Smith is well-informed and bases his opinions on solid facts and clear examples. This blend of knowledge and authenticity is why people listen when he steps into discussions outside of sports, including politics. When he critiques Kamala Harris's performance as vice president, it's not just another pundit seeking attention. It's a respected figure expressing concern that a leader is not meeting the public's expectations. Smith believes in speaking out clearly and boldly, a standard he holds for everyone, especially those in leadership positions. His critique of Harris centers on what he sees as her avoidance of challenging questions, which he interprets as a reluctance to face the necessary scrutiny that comes with her powerful position. For Smith, the issue is simple. Leaders must be ready to handle the heat, and Harris, in his view, has fallen short of this mark. As more eyes focused on Harris's actions, the gap between what was expected and what she did became clearer. Harris dodges the tough questions. Kamala Harris's ascent to the vice presidency was hailed as a significant moment for diversity and representation in American politics. Her background as a former senator and attorney general of California brought a rich mix of experience to the vice presidency, fueling hopes that she would be an assertive and articulate advocate. Yet the emerging narrative of her avoiding difficult questions and interviews raises concerns about her effectiveness and whether she can fulfill the expectations of such a critical role in government. As the Vice President, Kamala Harris has a big job. She's there to help the president take charge of specific projects, speak on behalf of the government, and represent the U.S. both at home and around the world. Her role also involves being honest and reachable for the American people, which means she needs to answer tough questions, engage in clear talks, and handle criticism when it comes her way. However, in recent times, many people feel that Harris isn't living up to these expectations. Instead of being the active and vocal leader that many hoped for, she often stays away from interviews and avoids discussing hard topics. This has made both the media and the public unhappy because they feel she isn't being as open or responsible as she should be. A clear example of this was her handling of the situation at the US-Mexico border. As someone who's supposed to manage immigration issues, a lot of people expected her to give straight answers about what the administration was doing to fix the crisis there. But Harris often gave unclear responses and didn't provide many details, which left many people feeling frustrated and let down. This wasn't a one-time thing either. There have been several times when Harris had the chance to face difficult questions, whether about rising prices, the government's COVID-19 response, or foreign policy, and she usually ended up giving rehearsed answers instead of engaging in a real conversation. This ongoing pattern has made people question if she's truly ready to tackle the hard parts of her job. Avoiding tough questions isn't just a bad image, it could mean she's not fully prepared to take on the tasks of her role. This is what sports commentator Stephen A. Smith pointed out. He believes that if you're in a leadership position, you should be ready to face hard questions, no matter how tough they might be. And according to him, Kamala Harris is not doing that. Smith didn't hold back in his criticism of Harris for avoiding hard interviews. His comments were direct and based on serious concerns with how Harris is handling her role as vice president. He clearly said he thinks Harris is skipping tough conversations to avoid criticism instead of addressing the American people's worries head on. For instance, when Harris was expected to talk about the ongoing immigration problem at the southern border, an issue she was specifically responsible for, she often skipped the topic or gave answers that were so broad they didn't really address the main concerns. Smith argued that this kind of behavior doesn't inspire confidence in her leadership. If the person in charge of a big issue isn't willing to discuss it openly, how can the public trust that they're actually working on a solution? Smith also brought up Harris's approach to questions about the economy, particularly the rising cost of living that affects everyone. When Harris was asked about this issue in interviews, she often dodged giving a direct answer, sticking to vague statements about how the administration was working on it without any clear explanation of their plans. Smith saw this as another sign of Harris avoiding responsibility. Moreover, Harris has been criticized for choosing media outlets for interviews that are likely to be gentle with her, avoiding those that might ask tough questions. By limiting her appearances to such places, she misses the chance to reach out to more people and tackle the concerns of those who might not already agree with her. For Smith, this method is not just cowardly, but also shows disrespect to Americans who deserve honest answers from their leaders. Smith's criticism didn't end there. He also took issue with how Harris responded to questions about her responsibilities as vice president. When pressed about what she has accomplished, Harris often seemed defensive or unsure, which made it seem like she wasn't fully involved or didn't want to discuss the details of her work. These are worrying signs for someone in such an important position. Even though Kamala Harris made history, it's now clear that her real test wasn't just becoming vice president, but handling the criticisms that followed. The truth Harris won't face. In Smith's opinion, real leadership is more than just having a title. It involves showing up, taking responsibility, and being brave enough to answer tough questions, even when it's uncomfortable. By consistently avoiding difficult discussions and media scrutiny, Kamala Harris is not showing the leadership that the American people need and deserve. Smith's message was loud and clear. If you're going to be the vice president of the United States, you need to be ready to handle the pressure, and so far, Harris hasn't shown that she can do that effectively. The disappointment in Vice President Kamala Harris is widespread, and it's not just sports analyst Stephen A. Smith voicing concerns. Many people across the United States feel the same. When Harris was elected, there was a lot of excitement because she was making history. However, as time has passed, more and more people feel she hasn't lived up to what was expected of her in this critical role. Many had high hopes that Harris would be a strong voice for the administration and take an active role in solving some of the country's most pressing problems. Unfortunately, she often seems to stay out of the spotlight or uses very rehearsed lines when she does speak. This behavior doesn't sit well with the public, as it makes her seem less involved and not very open about what's happening behind the scenes. For instance, Harris was given the significant task of managing the border crisis, which was a chance for her to step up and show strong leadership. Instead of coming forward with clear plans and actions, she often avoided answering questions directly. One time, when asked if she planned to visit the border, her reply was, "I haven't been to Europe either." This kind of response seemed out of touch and didn't address the seriousness of the border situation. People expect more from their leaders, especially when it comes to important issues like this. They want leaders who are approachable and ready to tackle tough questions directly. Harris often seems to dodge these interactions, which leads to frustration among the public. There's a difference between being cautious with words and completely avoiding important discussions. The latter can make it seem like a leader is not fully engaged or committed to their duties. In a time filled with challenges, from economic hardships to the ongoing recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, people are looking for reassurance and direct communication from their leaders. They want to know the government's plans for improvement and how these plans will affect their lives. However, Harris has been notably absent from major interviews and seems reluctant to take part in in-depth discussions. This absence is felt by many and adds to the sense that she isn't fully invested in her responsibilities as vice president. Moreover, Harris appears to be more concerned with keeping a polished image than really getting into the nitty-gritty of governance. She often avoids engaging with media outlets that might ask harder questions. This approach makes it seem like she's not open to being challenged or held accountable. People generally expect their leaders to be willing to face all kinds of questions, those that are simple and those that are tough. Stephen A. Smith's critique of Harris highlights these issues and has resonated with many because it reflects a broader problem of accountability in politics. Holding a high office means you need to actively engage with the citizens and be ready to explain your actions or inactions. When leaders fail to do this, it undermines public trust and lowers confidence in their leadership. Smith's critique is particularly striking because he doesn't come from a typical political pundit background. His comments come from a place of genuine frustration and a desire for transparency in leadership. He isn't tied to a political party in his criticisms. Instead, he speaks as an American who expects high standards from public figures. His experience in sports commentary influences his expectations of political leaders. In sports, accountability is straightforward. If an athlete or coach doesn't perform well, they must face immediate questions and often public criticism. This no-nonsense approach to accountability is what Smith believes should apply in politics too. Stephen A. Smith's words hit harder than expected, showing the difference between those who face challenges with courage and those who struggle under pressure. Smith demands answers from Harris. Stephen A. Smith views Vice President Kamala Harris as someone who should be thriving under pressure, similar to an athlete in a high-stakes game. He argues that if you're in a prominent, influential role, you must be prepared to manage the stress that accompanies such positions. Leaders shouldn't rely on scripted answers or dodge challenging questions. Instead, they should be direct and ready to face tough situations without hesitation. Smith's viewpoint introduces a sports-like accountability into the realm of political leadership. Given his background in sports commentary, he understands the necessity of being ready and responsive, especially when facing criticism. According to him, just as athletes are subject to intense scrutiny on the field or court, political figures should also endure close examination, whether in a press conference or public appearances. This scrutiny and transparency are crucial for maintaining the confidence of the public and ensuring that leaders genuinely represent and address the concerns of their constituents. This dissatisfaction with Harris's performance hints at deeper systemic problems within political leadership, encompassing issues of transparency, engagement, and accountability. The public expects clear communication and visible action from their leaders, particularly during difficult times. The need for straightforward interaction and active participation from political figures is paramount. Leaders like Harris are expected to rise to these expectations to preserve public trust and govern effectively. Smith's critique is not just a standalone observation, but resonates with many who observe politics. He sees the role of a leader as one that inherently comes with challenges and believes that these leaders should not shy away from them. In sports, being actively involved and facing the press after a game, regardless of the outcome, is part of an athlete's duty. Similarly, political leaders should not hide from the public or the media, even when the questions are tough or the issues are complex. Furthermore, this approach to leadership, being visible, accountable, and responsive, builds stronger relationships between leaders and the citizens they serve. It fosters a sense of trust and reliability, which are foundational to effective governance. When leaders like Harris fail to meet these standards, it not only impacts their own credibility, but also the overall integrity and functionality of the leadership structure they are part of. In sports, a coach or player's failure to address their strategies or decisions often leads to a loss of respect and trust among fans and stakeholders. Similarly, in politics, when leaders avoid addressing pressing questions or issues directly, it can lead to a decline in public trust. People value leaders who are not only decision makers but also communicators who can articulate their policies and the reasoning behind their decisions clearly. The relationship between a leader's visibility and public trust cannot be overstated. During crises or significant challenges, the public looks to its leaders for reassurance and direction. When those leaders are not forthright or visible, it creates uncertainty and dissatisfaction. This is why Smith's call for accountability and transparency in political leadership is so pivotal. It underlines the expectation that leaders be as open and engaged as athletes are expected to be during competitions. Leadership, whether in sports or politics, demands resilience and the willingness to tackle issues head-on. It requires leaders to step out from behind their advisors and prepared statements, to interact directly with the people and to address their concerns with honesty and integrity. The ability to do so not only defines their tenure, but also shapes the public's trust in the institutions they lead. The public's dissatisfaction with Kamala Harris's tenure as vice president is indicative of broader concerns with political leadership today. These concerns center around the need for leaders to be more transparent, engaged, and accountable. As citizens look to their leaders for guidance and solutions, particularly in times of crisis, the demand for honest communication and proactive engagement is critical. Leaders like Harris must meet these expectations to maintain public trust and lead effectively. This sports-like accountability, as advocated by Stephen A. Smith, could be the key to fostering a healthier, more trustful relationship between political leaders and the communities they serve. Could Stephen Smith's revelations about Kamala Harris be just the tip of the iceberg, or is there something even more hidden beneath the surface? Share your thoughts and remember to like and subscribe for more.